For 3.5 billion years, every living thing on this planet has followed one rule: breathe. From the smallest bacteria to the largest whale, from fungi buried in soil to eagles riding thermals at 30,000 feet, every single organism on Earth uses oxygen to fuel its existence. Until something decided it didn't need to anymore. Deep inside the muscle tissue of a salmon, hidden from sunlight and sealed away from air, lives a creature that has broken biology's most fundamental law. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't respire. It has no lungs, no gills, not even the microscopic machinery that turns oxygen into energy. And yet somehow, impossibly, it lives. Scientists call it Henneguya salminicola. But perhaps we should call it what it truly is: the first animal to escape the tyranny of air itself. So here's the question that keeps biologists awake at night. How does life exist without the very thing that defines life? Let's rewind to the beginning. Oxygen is the currency of existence. It's what turns sugar into energy, what powers your heartbeat, what lets your brain form the thought you're having right now. Every cell in your body is a microscopic furnace, burning oxygen to stay alive. Without it, most complex life would collapse within minutes. Your neurons would starve. Your muscles would freeze. The machinery of consciousness would simply stop. This is the world we inherited, a planet soaked in oxygen, shaped by oxygen, ruled by oxygen. But here's what we rarely talk about. Oxygen is also poison. It corrodes. It oxidizes. It tears apart the delicate molecules that make you. Every breath you take fills your body with a substance that slowly, inevitably ages you from the inside out. Oxygen is both the fuel that keeps you alive and the fire that consumes you. For billions of years, evolution has been an arms race against oxygen toxicity, building defenses, scavenging free radicals, patching the damage as fast as it happens. Every living thing on Earth has learned to tolerate oxygen because the alternative was extinction. Except one. When scientists discovered an animal that had completely abandoned oxygen, they thought it was a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake, it was something far stranger. The story begins in the cold waters of the Pacific Northwest. Salmon swim upstream, their bodies packed with muscle, their flesh pink from the krill they've consumed. And hidden inside that flesh, invisible to the naked eye, are tiny white cysts. For decades, fishermen knew about these cysts. They called them tapioca disease because of how the parasites looked under the skin, little milky pearls embedded in the muscle tissue. But no one really understood what they were. Just another parasite, another footnote in the encyclopedia of things that infect salmon. Then in 2020, a team of researchers at Tel Aviv University decided to sequence the genome of these parasites. What they found shattered expectations. The creature inside the cyst, Henneguya salminicola, had no mitochondrial genome for respiration, no genes for processing oxygen, no cellular machinery for aerobic metabolism. It was an animal, multicellular, complex, descended from ancient jellyfish that had somehow lost the ability to breathe. Imagine discovering a bird that doesn't fly. Now imagine discovering a bird that doesn't need air. This wasn't just unusual, this was impossible. Because mitochondria, those tiny power plants inside your cells, are what separate complex life from simple bacteria. They're the reason you can think, move, exist as more than a single cell floating in primordial soup. And this worm had thrown them away. In the flesh of a salmon, a ghost wriggles, a creature that has quietly, methodically broken one of biology's oldest laws. Not through rebellion, not through mutation, but through something far more disturbing, through evolution deciding that oxygen was optional. So how does it survive? That's the question that haunts every biologist who studies Henneguya salminicola. First, let's understand what it used to be. Millions of years ago, its ancestors were free-swimming jellyfish, translucent bells pulsing through ancient oceans, equipped with stinging cells and the full genetic toolkit of a respiring animal. But somewhere along the evolutionary timeline, these creatures made a choice. They became parasites. They burrowed into salmon tissue and never left. And once you're sealed inside another animal's body, oxygen becomes inside muscle tissue. Oxygen levels are low, unreliable, inconsistent. For a parasite trying to survive in that environment, depending on oxygen is a gamble. So Henneguya salminicola did something extraordinary. It simplified. Gene by gene, generation by generation, it shed the molecular machinery of respiration. It lost its mitochondrial DNA. It deleted the proteins that bind oxygen. It became smaller, simpler, more efficient. Instead of burning oxygen for energy, it likely absorbs nutrients directly from its host, pre-digested molecules floating in the salmon's bloodstream. It takes what it needs without the cost of breathing. Think of it like this. Most animals are combustion engines, burning fuel to generate power. Henneguya salminicola is a solar panel, passively collecting energy without fire, without exhaust, without waste. It doesn't need to breathe, because it doesn't need to burn. But here's where it gets truly strange. By every biological definition, Henneguya salminicola is still an animal. It's multicellular, it has tissues, it moves, it reproduces. It even has remnants of jellyfish anatomy, those ancient stinging cells embedded in its structure. Yet it exists in a state that shouldn't be possible for an animal. It's alive, but in a way that defies what we call life. Is it even alive in the way we understand the term? Or has it crossed some threshold into a state of existence we don't have words for yet? Let's zoom out for a moment. We like to think we understand life. We teach it in schools, write it in textbooks, carve it into definitions. Life is metabolism, reproduction, response to stimuli, adaptation. But the deathless worm doesn't care about our definitions. It exists in defiance of them. And maybe that's the real lesson here. That life has no single rulebook, no mandatory checklist, no universal laws that can't be bent or broken. What we call life is really just persistence. The ability to continue existing, no matter the cost, no matter the form, no matter how many sacred rules you have to abandon along the way. Henneguya salminicola didn't evolve to be impressive. It didn't evolve to inspire awe or challenge scientists or make us question our assumptions. It evolved to survive. And survival doesn't care about elegance. In a world built on breath, it chose silence. In a universe where oxygen is king, it abdicated the throne. And in doing so, it revealed something profound, that complexity is not always progress. That evolution doesn't always move toward bigger brains, stronger bodies, more sophisticated systems. Sometimes evolution moves toward simplicity, toward efficiency, toward becoming just enough to endure. The deathless worm is proof that life doesn't need to be beautiful, conscious, or even breathing to keep going. It only needs to persist. And in the cold muscle tissue of a salmon beneath layers of flesh and blood and bone, it does exactly that. Quietly, invisibly, endlessly. A creature that has stripped away everything we think makes life worth living, and somehow still clings to existence. So what does this mean for us? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Because if life can exist without oxygen, the molecule we thought was non-negotiable, the fuel we assumed was universal, then what else could exist that we haven't imagined yet? What other forms of life are hiding in environments we've dismissed as lifeless? Deep in ocean trenches, buried in Antarctic ice, drifting in the clouds of Venus, perhaps even within our own bodies, thriving in spaces we thought were empty. The deathless worm isn't here to impress us. It's a quiet rebellion, a whisper from the margins of biology that says, the universe doesn't care about your rules, it only cares about what survives. And survival takes infinite forms. Some breathe, some don't. Some think, some don't. Some dream of meaning, and some just exist. Maybe that's enough. In the end, Henneguya salminicola teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not the measure of all life, that our oxygen-soaked existence is just one path among countless others, that the universe is far stranger, far more adaptable, far more resilient than we ever dared to believe. And somewhere right now, inside a salmon swimming upstream, a tiny ghost wriggles, deathless, silent, free. If life can exist without oxygen, what else could exist without us? The strangest truths are still waiting beneath your skin. If you love stories that make you question what life even means, subscribe to Insane Biology Stories. Because biology doesn't just explain the world, it shatters it and rebuilds it stranger than before.